Hello, everyone. This is Caren Glasser, and I am excited because we have a repeat return guest, Jacqueline Kyle. She was with us several months ago when she was getting ready to launch her new book, Ebenezer Scrooge Ghost Hunter. And we had a great conversation back then. And now the book is published. And I thought it would be interesting to bring her back and talk about the journey, the travels that she's taken to get this book into that publishing state, and then how she's been marketing it, because she has really done some out of the box kind of thinking. So Jacqueline, come on in and say hello to everyone.
Hi, Caren, and hello, Passion Point people. I am back like a bad rash.
Okay, well, and I've got some ointment over here, so I don't know what to say. So, Jacqueline, first of all, congratulations on your book being published. I know you're getting rave reviews, and I have a copy of it right here. So for those of you who are just wondering what it looks like, it is just very, very cool. And you can see it says IndieGoGo on it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And here's one of the amazing illustrations that you had made. You did a beautiful job. I mean, truly. And it's a fun book. It really is. I mean, you take the old and you meld it with the new, and only you could do something like that. So let's talk about what's happened since we last talked about you were writing a book and it was going to be published. You're now marketing it. You're out there. What did you do to get such attention to it?
Wow. So to rewind, I wrote this book 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And then it just sat gathering dust on my computer. And I pulled it out one day and dug through it and was like, I need to publish this. It's actually really good, because sometimes we put things on a shelf because it's not good. Mm-hmm. And when I came back to it, it was kind of amazing. So when I was looking at what to do with it, I decided that what I wanted to do was crowdfund, because crowdfunding, particularly with IndieGoGo, it was going to set a deadline, and it was going to put together a lot of interest and a lot of people talking about it before it ever finished coming out. And
so before you go farther, let's talk about what is crowdfunding for those who are listening and don't even know what crowdfunding is.
Okay. So crowdfunding is where you have a test product that you put out, and you have levels of contributions, and people who are your fans can come in and pre-order. And that helps with funding the actual development of and production of your final product. And people do this on technology. They do this on books. There's all sorts of different projects out there. For me, that financial support early helped get those amazing illustrations done. That's the main thing that those paid for. So it was pretty exciting to have those deadlines. That made me put together my press releases. It made me put together the blurb on the back of the book. It made me set a publication date so that I would actually have to follow through and get it done.
So you began with the end in mind, so to speak.
Yes, I knew that without having a deadline and without having an audience looking at me and saying, where is my book that I got for my contribution, then I would never actually have hit the publication button. So having the crowdfunding campaign really was amazing for that alone.
And it also allows you to stay in touch with the people who have supported you, right? Because the way that the platform works, IndieGoGo, is you can send messages now, because I know I supported you and I know I get messages from you. Isn't that right?
It is. And actually, when I signed up for IndieGoGo, I didn't know that. And so I would suddenly start getting emails from other campaigns that I had been in contact with. And I was like, oh, so every time I send an update to my IndieGoGo campaign, all of a sudden, that goes out to everyone who ever contacted me. That's pretty cool.
That's very cool. And there are several crowdfunding companies out there. IndieGoGo operates a little bit differently than some of the other ones, because with IndieGoGo, if I'm not mistaken, even if you don't reach your goal, you can still continue on, right?
Yes. It depends on how you have set it up in the very beginning. Like a Kickstarter or some of the IndieGoGo campaigns, you can say, if I don't get all of this money, then everyone gets their money back and it's all returned. Or the way I set up my IndieGoGo campaign, it was, we're doing this no matter what. So whatever dollar amount comes in, that's okay. I'm going to continue on and finish the project. It's not an all or nothing proposition.
And the way it works is that you share a piece of those proceeds with IndieGoGo and or Kickstarter, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you did the IndieGoGo thing, and it was very successful. And what was the next thing that you did?
The next thing that I did, so by setting up my crowdfunding campaign, I had all of these pieces and things to talk about. And what I realized worked best when promoting the IndieGoGo campaign was, well, of course, you've got like the press releases and the things like that, but I started getting creative. And I decided to start doing top 10 lists. And so I started an account with BuzzFeed, and I would list out like the top 10 amazing crowdfunding campaigns that people need to pay attention to. And then I would send that out via my network, and then I would send it to those crowdfunders as well, those campaigns, so that they could send it out to their network, so that we could sort of piggyback on each other. And that really brought a lot of views into these posts that otherwise wouldn't have really gone anywhere. It was a great way to network and leverage each other to get more attention.
Well, you know, I'm all about collaboration. You know, I love that part of it. So that's really cool.
It did work out very, very well. And so when it came closer to the publication time for my book, I started doing the same thing with other indie authors who are publishing the same month that mine went out.
Very cool. And I know that you're very active in Goodreads. So let's talk a little bit about Goodreads.
I love Goodreads. Basically, I have set up a number of interviews on Goodreads. I have managed to get a lot of early reviews. Amazon.com, even if you do pre-sale books, they won't let you post reviews until the book is actually published. That's not the case with Goodreads. Goodreads, you can publish, people can get early copies of your book and publish the reviews early. So it was a great way to get early traction on the book. Additionally, I was able to do some giveaways and get people to shelve my book before it ever came out. I had very specific goals of what I was trying to do as far as numbers of people who were interested in reading my book and shelving it. So I'm very tactical in the way that I market. I want to know how many people are looking, how many people are signing up, how many people are opting in. And so for me, Goodreads has given me a lot of those matrices so that I can know exactly where I'm getting the most traction, which is fantastic.
Very fantastic.
What I've learned through all of this is that I always want to have something to talk about, something new. I don't know if, Caren, you know this, but I published a series of quizzes on PlayBuzz where someone can find out what kind of ghost hunter they are. And right now, 5,000 people have taken that quiz, or it's close to 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fun way to interact with the book and what kind of ghost hunter are you? And it's a new way to talk about the book without saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Additionally, I like to send out memes. So I'll send them out from Scrooge's point of view, where like I put the 3 ghosts that are at the end of Star Wars out in a picture and said, these are not the ghosts I was looking for. Just fun ways to interact and cross over and create new content that people would be interested in laughing and joking about.
Very, very interactive. And I know that you got involved with something called a blog tour. So what is a blog tour and how does that work? And is it working for you?
Blog touring is really something that has come up in the last 5 years, and maybe even more in the last 3 years. But you have a number of people out there who are interested in books. They read books, they post reviews to their site, and they're very, very popular because not everyone wants to plunk down their $5 to $10 on a book or even more without knowing a little bit about what it's about, and to find out from someone who reads a lot if it's worth their time and their money. So these blogs have popped up all over. And they're always looking for new content, whether they have the time to review your book or if they just want to support an indie author. They'll say, yes, I'll support your blog tour. You know, I would like to interview you, or I would like you to post on something. I did a number of really interesting posts, like how would you pick your supernatural villain, and interesting writing tips, and how do you sit down and write. And these were guest posts that I did. And then some of them would review, and every day there was a different blog that was featured that I was sending out their information, and then they were sending out my information to their audience. And it's very, again, collaborative process.
Exactly. So it's it was sort of a collaborative blog sort of thing, and you're leveraging a bigger community because they would read yours, and then you in turn would read somebody else's, and then you would share it out. And that works, doesn't it?
It does work. It did get me a lot of eyes. It got me a lot of reviews from the bloggers that I had sent my book out to. That said, it was really difficult and time-consuming to set it all up. It kind of burned me out. I think that I would probably hire someone to do the nuts and bolts of setting it up for me in the future.
So are there any other things that you have tried and that have worked, or even things that you have tried that have not worked in terms of promoting your book?
Press releases, I found, just kind of went into a black hole unless I very, very specifically tailored it to a specific person at a specific publication. And even then, sometimes I didn't get a response, or it was like, oh, thanks, but I'm not interested right now. So press releases, in the idea of I'm going to write one and send it out and get all of this media attention, it's a lot more work than that, and it just didn't work well for me and what I was trying to accomplish. Okay,
and so any tips, any things that you can tell our listeners if they've got this book and they've written the book? And by the way, if you've written a book and you need to get it published, you know, certainly give Jacqueline and myself a call, because we can help you get there. But
yeah.
Are there any other tips that you might want to suggest to the would-be writers or the wannabe writers, or that already did write and now I don't know what to do, and get it out there?
I think that setting the intention and the date of when you're going to get it out, I think setting it way far in the future so that you have time to edit it and make it the best possible book possible. And I think that setting a time and a date that's far in advance gives you time to market your book and to come up with your strategy, so that you are launching and you're doing a pre-order and you have all of those pieces in place so that you can run with it without hitting the publish button and then trying to figure it out as you go.
Yes, and we know we've all been there. So, you know, what I want to say about you, Jacqueline, is that you are very prolific. You are a very creative and intuitive writer, I think, for lack of a better word. I know that you ghostwrite. You've written some of my books. You've written a ton of books. And I kind of wanted to tease our audience with, and you probably are wondering why I didn't read this in the beginning, but I wanted people to really listen to this. This is a sample of how Jacqueline describes herself as an introduction. So I'm just going to read this because it just makes me chuckle every time I read this, but it really does go to the heart of who you are. You know how to have a good time when you're writing and when you're working with people. So this is what Jacqueline Kyle says about herself. Jacqueline Kyle once stood on top of an active nuclear reactor. It glowed. She dove the Great Barrier Reef, and the fish swarmed to check her out. On her 16th birthday, she flew a plane solo just to enjoy the view. She once ran a marathon because it was faster than walking. When she bungee jumps, she always goes first, so her friends can jump off the bridge after her. Jacqueline Kyle is not the most interesting man in the world because she's a woman. And that, you know, you're very creative, and it's very important, I think, when people are getting into this kind of industry, and in terms of sharing their thoughts and feelings and putting pen to paper, that if you can't do it yourself, that you find somebody who can work with you and can help you through the process. And I just want to give you a heads up on that, and really applaud you on your ability to work with writers Obviously, you're very talented in your own right. You have your own books out, but you also work with writers, and you are very, very, very good at what you do. So I want to applaud you. And where shall we send them right now if they want to check out some of your work? Is there, I know we didn't put a website or anything up here, but I will put it in the run sheet.
Before we get to that, I do have just a thought that I want to share. And
Absolutely.
that whether you're a ghostwriter or a fiction writer or nonfiction writer, when you sit down to write, good writing comes as an act of empathy. So that if you are sitting there trying to describe a scene, that you put yourself in those shoes and in that scene, and you try to intuit what your characters or what your client would want to say or do. That you actually, almost like an animated character, try and act it out in your mind and settle your body and be very empathetic to what other people are going through in the of their life and their journey. And that's what makes good writing and good storytelling. So if you are struggling right now, really dig down and get into your character or into your story, or really, if you, in the case of nonfiction, get to your reader and figure out what your reader needs to know and be empathetic towards it.
I love that. That's wonderful. That really says it all. So you can see why I like Jacqueline so much. So where are we going to send them? Are we going to send them to your blog tour?
Sure. It's JacquelineKyle.com. And, you know, in post-production, I'll put it up there. JacquelineKyle.com/Scrooge.
Scrooge.
Scrooge.
So I have one last question to ask you, because I mean, Ebenezer Scrooge is a well-known character in literature.
Mm-hmm.
Is it public domain? I mean, how did it come about that you're able to actually use Ebenezer Scrooge and written by? I mean, in your book it says by Jacqueline Kyle and Charles Dickens. I mean, it's right there on the book. How did that come about?
Oh, and Charlie would not be too happy about it, but it is public domain. And the way that you go about doing this is you have to add new content, whether it's a new preface, introduction, new footnotes. You have to have new illustrations, and there need to be 10. And you have to, well, in my case, I added like 50% new content to the book as well. But you have to make the book different than the current publications of it. And you have to, of course, file your copyrights to protect the parts that you added to the original story.
Makes good sense. Okay, I was just wondering, and I'm sure our listeners were wondering as well. We want to thank everyone for being with us today. Jacqueline, you're the best. And if you want to go check out Jacqueline, just check the run sheet right down below. And I know that you're going to be taking this video as well, and you'll edit that in as well. It's always great to see you, and we'll see everyone next time on the next episode of The Passion Point. Goodbye, everyone.